So I'm going to share my screen. So just let me know if you can all see it. All right. So let's begin with the first chapter of The Power of Now. You are not your mind. So the greatest obstacle to enlightenment. Enlightenment, what is that? A beggar had been sitting by the side of a road for over 30 years. One day a stranger walked by. Spare some change, mumbled the beggar, mechanically holding out his old baseball cap. I have nothing to give you, said the stranger. Then he asked, what's that you're sitting on? Nothing, replied the beggar. Just an old box. I have been sitting on it for as long as I can remember. Ever looked inside? Asked the stranger. No, said the beggar. What's the point? There's nothing in there. Have a look inside, insisted the stranger. The beggar managed to pry open the lid. With astonishment, disbelief, and elation, he saw that the box was filled with gold. I am that stranger who has nothing to give you and who is telling you to look inside. Not inside any box, as in the parable, but somewhere even closer, inside yourself. But I am not a beggar, I can hear you say. Those who have not found their true wealth, which is the radiant joy of being and the deep, unshakable peace that comes with it, are beggars. Even if they have great material wealth, they're looking outside for scraps of pleasure, or fulfillment, for validation, security, or love. While they have a treasure within that not only includes all those things, but is infinitely greater than anything the world can offer. The word enlightenment conjures up the idea of some superhuman accomplishment, and the ego likes to keep it that way. But it is simply your natural state of felt oneness with being. It is a state of connectedness with something immeasurable and indestructible, something that almost paradoxically is essentially you and yet greater than you. It is finding your true nature beyond name and form. The inability to feel this connectedness gives rise to the illusion of separation from yourself and from the world around you. You then perceive yourself consciously or unconsciously as an isolated fragment. Fear arises and conflict within and without becomes the norm. I love the Buddha's simple definition of enlightenment as the end of suffering. There's nothing superhuman in that, is there? Of course, as a definition, it is not complete. It is incomplete. It only tells you what enlightenment is not, no suffering. But what's left when there's no more suffering? The Buddha is silent on that. And his silence implies that you'll have to find out for yourself. He uses a negative definition so the mind cannot make it into something to believe in or into a superhuman accomplishment, a goal that is impossible for you to attain. Despite this precaution, the majority of Buddhists still believe that enlightenment is for the Buddha, not for them, at least not in this lifetime. You use the word being. Can you explain what you mean by that? Being is the eternal, ever present one life beyond the myriad forms of life that are subject to birth and death. However, being is not only beyond, but also deep within every form as its innermost, invisible, and indestructible essence. This means that it is accessible to you now as your own deepest self, your true nature. But don't seek to grasp it with your mind. Don't try to understand it. You can know it only when the mind is still, when you are present, when your attention is fully and intensely in the now. Being can be felt, but it can never be understood mentally. To regain awareness of being and to abide in that state of feeling realization is enlightenment. When you say being, are you talking about God? If you are, then why don't you say it? Sapna, would you like to continue from the next page?
Yeah, sure. The word God has become empty of meaning through, just a sec, meaning through thousands of years of misuse. I use it sometimes, but I do not, I do so sparingly. By misuse, I mean that people who have never even glimpsed the realm of the sacred, the infinite vastness behind that word, use it with great conviction, as if they knew what they are talking about, or they argue against it, as if they knew what is it that they are denying. This misuse gives rise to absurd beliefs, assertions, and egoic delusions, such as my or your God is the only true God and your God is false, or Nietzsche's famous statement, God is dead. The word God has become a closed concept. The moment the word is uttered, a mental image is created, no longer perhaps of an old man with a white beard, but still a mental representation of someone or something outside you. And yes, almost inevitably a male someone or something. Neither God nor being nor any other word can define or explain the ineffable reality behind the world. So the only important question is whether the word is a help or a hindrance in enabling you to experience that toward which it points. Does it point beyond itself to that transcendental reality, or does it lend itself too easily to becoming more than idea in your head that you believe in, a mental idol? The word being explains nothing, but nor does God. Being, however, has the advantage that it is an open concept. It does not reduce the infinite invisible to a finite entity. It is impossible to form a mental image of it. Nobody can claim exclusive possession of being. It is your very essence, and it is immediately accessible to you as the feeling of your own presence, the realization I am that is prior to I am this or I am that. It is only a small portion of the complexity of being, what is the complexity? Identification with your mind, which causes thought to become compulsive, not to be able to stop thinking without affliction. But we don't realize this because most of the mind is suffering from it, so it is considered normal.
Thank you. Priya, would you like to read the next page? You can just unmute yourself.
Yeah,
Can you see it on the screen?
yeah, I can. So I start from the incessant mental noise.
Yes, right.
This incessant mental noise prevents you from finding that realm of inner stillness that is inseparable from being. It also creates a false mind made self that casts a shadow of fear and suffering. We will look at all that in more detail later. The philosopher Descartes believed that he had found the most fundamental truth when he made his famous statement, I think, therefore I am. He had, in fact, given expression to the most basic error, to equate thinking with being and identity with thinking. The compulsive thinker, which means almost everyone, lives in a state of apparent separateness in an insanely complex world of, of continuous problems and conflict, a world that reflects the ever increasing fragmentation of the mind. Enlightenment is a state of wholeness, of being at one, and therefore at peace, at one with life in its manifested aspect, the world as well as your deepest self and life unmanifested, at one with being. Enlightenment is not only the end of suffering and of continuous conflict within and without, but also the end of dreadful enslavement to incessant thinking. What an incredible liberation this is. Identification with your mind creates an opaque screen of concepts, labels, images, words, judgments, and definitions that block all true relationship. It comes between you and yourself, between you and your fellow man and woman, between you and nature, between you and God. It is this screen of thought that creates the illusion of separateness, the illusion that there is you and a totally separate other. You then forget the essential fact that underneath the level of physical appearances and separate forms, you are one with all that is. By forget, I mean you can no longer feel this oneness as self-evident reality. You may believe it to be true, but you no longer know it to be true. A belief may be comforting. Only through your experience, however, does it become liberating. Thinking has become a disease. Disease happens when things get out of balance. For example, there is nothing wrong with cells dividing and multiplying in the body. But when this process continues in disregard of the total organism, cells proliferate and we have disease. The mind is a superb instrument if it is right, if used rightly. Used wrongly, however, it becomes very destructive. To put it more accurately, it is not so much that you use your mind wrongly. You usually don't use it at all. It uses you. This is the disease. You believe that you are your mind. This is the delusion. The instrument has taken you over. I don't quite agree. It is true that I do a lot of aimless thinking, like most people, but I still choose to use my mind to get and accomplish things. And I do that all the time. Just because you solve a crossword puzzle or build an atom bomb doesn't mean that you use your mind. Just as dogs love to chew bones, the mind loves to get its teeth into problems. That's why it does crossword puzzles and build atom bombs. You have no interest in either. Let me ask you this. Can you be free of your mind whenever you want? Have you found the off button?
Very nice. Priya, would you continue reading? It's so soothing to listen to you speak.
Yeah, surely. Okay. Freeing yourself from your mind.
So I think the upper paragraph also you have.
Okay, sorry. You mean stop thinking altogether? No, I can't, except maybe for a moment or two. Then the mind is using you. You are unconsciously identified with it, so you don't even know that you are its slave. It's almost as if you were possessed without knowing it. And so you take the possessing entity to be yourself. The beginning of freedom is the realization that you are not the possessing entity, the thinker. Knowing this enables you to observe the entity. The moment you start watching the thinker, a higher level of consciousness becomes activated. You then begin to realize that there is a vast realm of intelligence beyond thought. That thought is only a tiny aspect of that intelligence. You also realize that all the things that truly matter, beauty, love, creativity, joy, inner peace, arise from beyond the mind. You begin to awaken. Shall I continue,
Yes.
Geet? Freeing yourself from your mind. What exactly do you mean by watching the thinker? When someone goes to the doctor and says, I hear a voice in my head, he or she will most likely be sent to a psychiatrist. The fact is that, in a very similar way, virtually everyone hears a voice or several voices in their head all the time. The involuntary thought processes that you don't realize you have the power to stop. Continuous monologues and dialogues. You have probably come across mad people in the street incessantly talking or muttering to themselves. Well, that's not much different from what you and all other normal people do, except that you don't do it loud. The voice comments, speculates, judges, compares, complains, likes, dislikes, and so on. The voice isn't necessarily relevant to the situation you find yourself in at that time. It may be reviving the recent or distant past, or rehearsing or imagining possible future situations. Here it Here it often imagines things going wrong and negative outcomes. This is called worry. Sometimes this soundtrack is accompanied by visual images or mental movies. Even if the voice is relevant to the situation at hand, it will interpret it in terms of the past. This is because the voice belongs to your conditioned mind, which is restless, which is the result of all your past history as well as the collective cultural mindset you inherited. So you see and judge the present through the eyes of the past and get a totally distorted view of it. It is not uncommon for the voice to be a person's own worst enemy. Many people live with a tormentor in their head that continuously attacks and punishes them and drains them of vital energy. It is the cause of untold misery and unhappiness, as well as of disease. The good news is you can free yourself from your mind. This is the only true liberation. You can take the first step right now. Start listening to the voice in your head as often as you can. Pay particular attention to any repetitive thought patterns, those old gramophone records that have been playing in your head, perhaps for many years. This is what I mean by watching the thinker, which is another way of saying, listen to the voice in your head. Be there as the witnessing presence. When you listen to that voice, Listen to it impartially. That is to say, do not judge. Do not judge or condemn what you hear, for doing so would mean that the same voice has come in again through the back door. You'll soon realize there is the voice, and here I'm listening to it, watching it. This I am realization, this sense of your own presence is not a thought. It arises from beyond the mind.
All right, let's stop here. Thank you so much, Priya.
Welcome, Geet.
So let's do a small exercise. Okay. So I want all of you to close your eyes and I want you to take 3 deep breaths and then blow out from your mouth. And then I want you to notice and start listening to the voice in your head right now and pay attention to any repetitive thought that is coming in your mind, whether it's from your day, whether it's about from the past few days, anything about the future. So just listen to the voice in your head as the witnessing presence. Notice the thoughts arising as if somebody else is saying them, and you're just a witness. Just listen to this voice impartially, without any judgments. Nothing needs to be done about it. Be the witnessing presence. There is the voice, and here I am listening to it, watching it. And then I want you to imagine hugging this voice. Imagine this voice as a person or a form or a shape, and just imagine hugging it without any judgments, from a place of nothingness, from a place of zero. Whether you like what it says or you don't like what it says, just go ahead and hug this voice. And then just thank this voice for playing its role so far and set it free. And then slowly open your eyes. Take a deep breath. Breathe out from your mouth. Feel the stillness, this beautiful stillness that you just experienced. And would anyone like to share what did they feel or what came across for them?
So when we were doing this practice, at one point I got this thought. Oh, you said set it free, right? And at one point I said, if I set it free, what is left? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
what am I without it?
yeah. That's
So
wonderful.
that
So
was
that's
something,
perfect
and
the way it is.
yeah, and it felt just so peaceful and calm. Otherwise,
Yeah.
to just observe it for a while.
So doing this practice, so like initially, you had this thought, who would I be without this, this voice? So
Yeah.
once you keep practicing this stillness, this being the observer of this voice, you're going to start, that identity that is, we think linked with that voice, you'll be able to start freeing yourself from it and start witnessing that orgasmic feeling, which is, the connection with everything and everything, which the author talks about. So that's what you'll start experiencing, in some time.
Okay.
Whatever you experience was beautiful. Thanks for sharing. And if anyone has any questions about anything that we read and you could not understand some lines, because this is definitely not a very easy book to understand, so please go ahead and ask so that we can all share what we thought about that part in the book.
Hi, ma'am. This is Mukta
Yeah.
here. So I didn't understand the being word
Mhm.
because one paragraph the author said like being.
Hmm. Yeah, all right. So, as it says, being is the eternal, ever present one life beyond the myriad forms of life that are subject to birth and death. However, being is not only beyond but also deep within every form as its innermost, invisible, and indestructible essence. So, when the author is talking about the word being, he is actually using it to describe this consciousness, this pure consciousness, which we have given many words. Some of us might call it the source energy or the Christ consciousness or God. So many different terms have been given, but nobody can actually give a very specific form to it. So it's that feeling that, all of us have this consciousness which connects us, this feeling beyond this thought, the thinking, what we see around us. That is what the author is describing with the word being. Something which is, it doesn't die, it doesn't take birth, it just continues forever.
Thank you, ma'am. Got it. Thank you so much.
So, what about Minakshi and Priya? You want to say something?
Yeah, so Geet, my question is, you said release that voice, right? Will it come back again?
Of course. So, initially, it will definitely come back again. So, slowly with practice, you'll reach a point where even if that voice is there, it's going to be a very loving voice, first of all. Right now, I'm sure many of you must have felt that that voice is not a very friendly voice.
Yeah,
It's either a little strict, or it's either like a taskmaster, or like getting us to get things done. Or so once first the change happens is that the voice becomes very soft when you start hugging it, because the more you judge it, the more it tries to fight back or stick to us, and more you just accept it as whatever it is, it flows. So initially it turns into a loving voice, and eventually there is no voice, and your mind
okay.
is completely at peace at all times. Whether there's a storm going on in your life or there is complete joy, but your mind will just be at stillness. That's the thing that the author is talking about. To achieve that state is something which everyone can do. It's nothing that is too big to achieve.
Okay.
So, Geet, this is called peace, right? This is what we understand by peace.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah, the peace.
So normally, ma'am, for like in peace, so we have to practice like everyday meditation, right? For like
So
state of.
let for if you're following this book, you can just follow this simple exercise. Like step by step, he's going to share different exercises. So you can just try these as well. So like right now, it was a very simple exercise, but you must have felt something, a little bit of that stillness you must have felt in you. So slowly, with these practices also in itself, you can expand. And of course, there are meditations to do which help us, relax our mind and quieten these voices. So there are many different practices, and this book is one of those.
And ma'am, one more thing. Before also, like everyone read it, right? So that time I don't have any problem. But when you said, okay, just close your eyes. First thing I remember everything, but after that I don't know what happened. I didn't listen. I didn't listen anything. Means I didn't get it actually. Maybe I am sleeping that time.
So,
I
so
don't.
yeah, so that is actually that experience. So when you think you were sleeping, that's the stillness.
Okay.
That's actually, the experience of that complete peace, that small glimpse of that sleep feeling that you felt, that is actually stillness. But we're so used to these thoughts that we can't even identify what it is.
Exactly, ma'am. I that time I have so much a thing. After that, I don't know what happened. And you just finish. That time I just wake up. Now I don't have like no sleep, nothing.
Yeah, and feels very fresh when you experience that even for a second. It feels very peaceful. So yeah.
Hi, Geet. I just want to say, like, I am not fond of reading books, so but I am interested in this to read at least the audio one. So, do you have any soft copy for this so that you can share with me?
So what I'm doing is I'm going to be recording these sessions. So all the reading part of it will get recorded. So you can
Okay,
always access it from YouTube. I'll upload them on YouTube. And
okay.
so I don't have audiobooks, but I'm sure there must be audiobooks available on Amazon.
I have seen on many platforms, but it's not there. I will not getting the full one.
Yeah, so you
Only
can
few
always
pages are coming.
from YouTube you can read, like the reading I'm going to put of this recording.
Okay, I'll try to do that.
Uh,
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to share anything, any questions or any experiences? All right. If nothing else, so let's end the session for today and let's close our eyes and create an intention for the coming week. That I create an intention for myself to be a witness to this voice in this coming week. Witness this voice as a peaceful presence without any judgments. And so it is. All right. So thank you everyone for joining in. Have a great night and a wonderful week ahead. And I'll see you all next week. Bye.
Thanks, Geet. Bye.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks, Priya.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.